Hello DevOps friends, welcome to Monospace Mentor, which is me, and I'm here today to answer your questions all around DevOps, web operations, system administration, software engineering, IT career, job opportunities, learning, all that stuff. So I haven't prepared anything apart from my coffee, and it's up to you to provide us with questions that I'd kindly ask you to post to mspc.sh/office hour, where my Q&A page is. That allows everyone who's watching, regardless if they're watching on Twitch, on YouTube, or on my own live streaming channel, live.monospacementor.com, to add questions, and we can get them on screen for everyone so everyone knows what I'm talking about, even if they've just joined the stream, and it makes it easier for me to keep a grasp on who's asking what. So mspc.sh/office hour is where you can post your questions. You don't need an account, you don't need to leave an email or anything, and I'll field your questions here and I'll do my best to answer them. That's how it goes for the next hour or so, and until any questions come in, I'll simply sit here and maybe keep myself occupied with social media posts, or simply sip my coffee. Them's the rules, and I think it's easy enough. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask, if you have something that you'd like to have my opinion on, then post it to mspc.sh/office hour, and I'll take care of it. So, hello Connie Lol, nice to have you again. Let me also log into my own cast channel. Alrighty. We're good to go. Only waiting for questions to come in. And we already have our first question, so I don't need to occupy myself. That's amazing. Let's take a look. Question says, UFW or something else for home server / smaller company servers? I'd say yes. If you are on a Debian-based or Ubuntu-based distribution, UFW is a great way to get a simple firewall going, and it's definitely a good solution, because you just need a file or two to set up your firewall rules, and everything works nicely. That being said, I recently experimented with OpenSense, a full-fledged routing and firewall software, and I'm quite fond of it too. I used it to set up the VLAN for PubMox, which is the public Proxmox server that's available to members of the server room, my DevOps community of practice. If you want to join the server room, you're more than welcome to do so. And PubMox is a Proxmox server where everyone in the community can spin up their own VMs to do experiments, to take part in a course, or to do some general learning and experimenting, which is, by the way, an important part of learning. Practice is very important. Don't just read books or participate in courses. Anyway, OpenSense worked very well and is pretty nice to administer as well. But that requires, of course, you to have your own separate network that you can then firewall off. If you want to just protect a server and the services that are running on the server, then UFW is a great solution. We actually do use UFW ourselves at my managed hosting company to lock off services that shouldn't be or must not be available from the outside, such as Memcache, for example, which doesn't even have authentication or something, or MySQL, which is only used by services maybe running on the host, but not supposed to be reachable from the outside directly. So yeah, that's definitely a good solution. Thanks for the question, Connie Lol. We are off to a good start. Connie says, I think that was my only question for now. Currently taking a uni exam, but I'll be listening for something that could be helpful. Yep, hopefully I can be of help, because that's why I'm putting in the time and effort. And I really hope that I can be of some use to the community. I realized that I increased the resolution of my chat monitor, and that means I also need to increase the scale of my chat so my poor old eyes can read it correctly. And I'll also have to update the bookmark. Let me see, where is it? Edit bookmark, here we go. Okay. Well, now you see how it works. You can simply post your questions to mspc.sh/office hour, and I'll pick them up. Hey Moo, how you doing? Nita Tony over on YouTube asks, what is your opinion about AWS SageMaker? I'm afraid I have never heard of SageMaker, so I don't have an opinion either. Sorry about that. There definitely are areas where I can't help you, but now you've made myself curious. Watch, SageMaker is an interesting name after all. And of course it's AI related, the center for all your data analytics and AI. Let's see, what is this? AI and ML Unified Studio. Oh, interesting. So if I read that correctly, it's an AI supported data analytics platform. That's an area that I'm not active in. I don't do data analytics apart from grabbing through the odd web server log. It's definitely nicely presented, though. So let me play the question back to you, Nito Tony. What's your opinion on it? Connie says, as someone who currently studies machine learning, I have only one question. Why AI everything? I share that question. On the other hand, it's become easy to be cynical and discount everything that gets the label AI because, as you say, everything gets the label AI nowadays. On the other hand, data analytics platforms can definitely, and I'm not telling you anything new here since you're studying machine learning yourself, machine learning can do a lot in terms of data analytics. And so it might be just an issue of labeling this kind of machine learning as AI too, and basically mixing it in with all the other AI slop generators. And yeah, so I still do my best to not become that cynical and throw everything in the same bucket. But I can definitely see where you're coming from. It is so humid today. I'm sweating my arse off. Let's see if the fan can do a little bit about that. I agree, Connie, who says, I'm not saying ML shouldn't be used. It's very much useful, but I don't need an AI toaster, for example. Yeah, that's what I meant by the label AI gets slapped on everything nowadays. And AI also gets crammed into everything, if it's useful or not. And that is what drives people to be that cynical and then discount everything as soon as they see the two letters. That's what I try to keep it by, because in terms of data processing, machine learning, as we've been knowing it for decades, I guess, is definitely still a good solution. And in terms of language, natural language, LLMs do a great job as well. I do benefit from using LLMs as a non-native English speaker, because I can easily get a sentence phrased in a better way, in a more idiomatic way, when I can't come up with the right phrasing myself. That's something that LLMs, per their name, can do well. I think the problem is that coding, even though we're talking about programming languages, isn't really 100% within the grasp of LLMs, and that's why people are struggling to apply it in a productive way. And more studies come out that say, even when people think it makes them more productive, when it's measured objectively, it doesn't. It might even be detrimental. MXentras joining us, asking, good morning. Good morning. Any advice or security gaps I should look out for when setting up GitHub Action workflows that require SSHing into cloud provider to update Docker containers? No. I think from my experience, SSH is a very mature and very mature solution that is pretty much secure out of the box. If you apply common sense and best practices, meaning don't use password-based authentication, use key-based authentication. In this case, create a private key, especially for your CI system, for GitHub Actions, and only use that key, the public key part, to log into your servers. I would recommend making it easy to revert such a key should it ever get compromised, so that you can basically at the push of a button disable logins using that key. So separate your CI login from all other logins. Don't use your personal key in CI. Apart from that, I think it's not only pretty safe, it's also quite commonly used that way. That people add a specifically generated key pair via CI variables, for example, and write that to the CI instance. So when it invokes SSH, it uses that key, and then make that key revocable quickly, and you should be golden, I think. You could, of course, also look at alternatives to even logging in with SSH, because updating Docker containers is something that can be done in a different way as well. For example, with services like Watchtower, which is simply an extra container that you run, and that will check if there is a new image available in the registry, and then pulls that image and restarts a container. That way, you might get a little bit of a delay. Not sure how quickly Watchtower picks up all these updates all the time, but you'll eliminate the need of having to log in from CI into your Docker host. That's, of course, a different approach. It's definitely worth a look, though, I think. Good questions so far. Thank you for that. This is my office hour. Ideally, post your questions to mspc.sh/office hour, because there I can collect questions from all three of my live streaming platforms, Twitch, YouTube, and live.monospacementor.com, where I run my own Owncast server. And it makes it also easier for me to get questions on screen so everyone knows the context that I'm rambling on about. Connie says, good example of machine learning in home usage, object recognition on CCTV when being kept local and not cloud-based. Yep, definitely. Frigate, for example, as an open source CCTV platform, does exactly that. Alexander says, I was thinking about rotating keys, but seemed a bit overkill at the moment. Should definitely have a disable trigger though. Thank you for the answers. You're well welcome. Keep the questions coming. That's what I'm here for. Answering questions and drinking coffee is the only scheduled program for today. Arijit asks, as a student, it is very difficult to understand how the CD flow of going through different environments like dev stage happens, especially through manual approvals. It might be difficult depending on how complex your continuous deployment flows are. Do you have any questions around that? Check something. All good. By the way, if you post your questions to mspc.sh/office hour, you can also upvote other people's questions if you like them, and that makes it easier for me to pick if there's more than one. There is a new question on the board. Linux versus Unix, which means BSD for home server. The answer is yes. I don't think I'm biased towards one of these. So there's Linux and there's the BSDs like FreeBSD, OpenBSD and NetBSD. I haven't used BSD ever, to be honest. When I started out using Linux, I thought about going into the ISP business, becoming an internet provider. And back then, NetBSD was pretty much positioned, as the name says, I guess, pretty much positioned as the operating system for internet services. In the end, I ended up using Linux and never got into BSD. now that I'm so interested in the whole history of Unix, I have a newfound curiosity about BSDs, though, because they are actual Unices, as your question already mentions, while Linux is pretty near Unix, but if you take a closer look, it's inspired by Unix, while the BSDs pretty much are actual descendants of Unix, of the Unix systems of old, with operating systems like SCO, HP, Ultrix, AIX, SunOS, all these previous Unix versions, not to speak of the actual research Unix and the original BSD, which were the two original Unix platforms. So that being said, I do follow people using BSD in their daily work, and I have no doubt that today's BSD variants are just as capable for running a home server than Linux. The only thing is that there are, of course, differences, and not everything that is supported by Linux, because it's built with Linux in mind, also runs flawlessly on a BSD system. So I would say, since, and maybe from my own feeling of having been missing out on BSD, maybe try getting into BSD, because you can get back into Linux anytime. Linux is the dominating system in the industry. So if there is anything that annoys you too much using, say, something like FreeBSD, then you can easily revert to using Linux. But I think it's worth a try, and supporting the BSD side of things might help against the pretty much monoculture that Linux is in server operations. So yeah, I would encourage you to be curious about BSD, actually. Not because it's superior to Linux, but because I think the learning opportunity is great there, and I think that is always part of the home lab approach. Not only do you want to run services that you can use yourself, that are useful for you, your friends and family, you also want to learn something, and I think by choosing BSD operating systems, the learning opportunity is definitely there. Connie says, I've been using Linux for my servers, but was thinking about using BSD on my next box, so I wanted to hear your thoughts. Yeah, so obviously there is already some curiosity there. And I would say, yeah, go for it. Do use BSD, install it, see how the experience is, and how it is setting up common home lab applications and things like that. So it's definitely worth a try. If only for learning how the same things, such as, say, compartmentalization, containers and things like that, are done on the BSD side of things, which is a little bit different with the jail approach. But on the other hand, in the end, it's the same kind of abstraction too. Here's another question. Containers versus system packages for services on servers. Yeah, that's definitely a valid question, because container-based setups are becoming more and more common, and are basically competing against system or distribution packages. My approach would be to prefer system packages for services that have already traditionally been managed as system packages. So services like Apache, Nginx, depending on how you want to deploy it, also services like a database service, Postgres or MySQL. Install these as system packages, because in the end I think maintenance will be a little bit easier. That being said, once you are familiar with container-based deployments, it shouldn't be much harder, because updating container images isn't really any harder or more complex than updating system packages. Apart maybe from dependencies. That's why when we go into the details, I think packages still have their merit, because, yeah, as I said, dependencies are easily managed using modern package managers like apt or DNF. Whereas containers don't have a mechanism of, well, they don't have to, because they come with all their dependencies, now that I think of it. Yeah, so I am afraid that my answer will end up being it depends, because for example, for me, it would depend on the complexity of the setup that I'm trying to build. This question is more complex than I thought, which makes it a great question. I'm just now discovering that I'm actually leaning towards containers, because they allow for future added complexity. What I mean by that is you can start simple with containers, and at that level I think they don't have much of an advantage over system packages, simply because system packages have been built for this purpose for decades, and there are mature processes and toolings available. However, when your complexity reaches or goes up just a little, you might already be at the limit of what system packages can offer you. For example, if you need to run the same service in multiple instances on the same host, but with different versions, usually that's where you already run into issues with system packages, because you usually can only install one version of a system package, and switching to a higher version means upgrading the existing package and replacing it in the process. With containers, you can run as many versions of the same service as you like, because they are all compartmentalized. The other thing is, of course, scalability. If you want to run a service more than once for better availability, for better resource usage, if you want to build a service beyond a single host, if you want to run a cluster of a service, then containers, I think, have the advantage, because modern cloud-native infrastructure has been designed for exactly that purpose. And with that reasoning, I would say I would go for container-based deployments from the start. If you simply stay at a simple, non-complex level, good for you. You've lost nothing by using containers. But if you want then to ramp things up, container-based deployments allow you all kinds of things. I mean, even if ramping up means suddenly running hundreds or thousands of services across a huge fleet of hosts, using something like Kubernetes, then is still container-based. It's just a different order of magnitude in terms of infrastructure size and complexity. In the end, it's still container-based, though. So yeah, that was an interesting train of thought for me as well. That was a great question. This has been a fun question. Did I miss anything in my train of thought here? Is there some advantage of system packages that I'm missing here because I'm just too used to it? Let me know. Connie says, now that I think of it, NixOS might be quite good for home servers. There are many people who do use NixOS for their home servers. There might be even people in chat who do that. MX Entras asks, might be a noob question, but, well, noob questions are welcome too, so keep asking. How are y'all sharing environment variables when working with other devs? I'm currently using Git secret to allow unlocking entire env files locally, but curious if you have any preferred approach. So, here's a NixOS home server person. Hey Moo, how you doing? Yeah, that's a bit of a spicy problem, sharing environment variables or sharing secrets. Actually, that's what it boils down to, isn't it? And it's not trivial how to share secrets. My recommendation would be using a secrets store, either an infrastructure-based secret store such as HashiCorp Vault, or if you are not at a complexity level that would warrant installing something like Vault, then at least use a password manager that also allows you to manage secrets. I do know from my own experience using it for many years that 1Password, for example, does support this use case where you can store environment variables or store secrets and then retrieve them, for example, using the 1Password CLI command, and then maybe using a template-based approach to write them out into a .env file on your local workstation. So, I mean, your Git secret, or there's also Git crypt approach is definitely valid as well. You need some way to store your secrets centrally in a safe way, and that always will include encryption, of course, and sharing some kind of access key, in my experience, until you reach a complexity level that basically makes it necessary to run something like HashiCorp Vault. I would stick with a password manager because it's so much easier to maintain and to run. Everyone has their own master password that they use to access their stuff, including API tokens and things like that. You can use a shared vault in 1Password to make stuff available throughout the team. And maybe you are already using a password manager in your team already, which would, of course, solve this problem immediately for you. Connie says, the one thing I was thinking of with containers would be overhead, but don't think it would make that much of a difference. I'm just so used to packages. The AUR makes it even easier. Oh, you're using Arch, by the way. But I'm trying to move to containers with new things I'm adding. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about overhead. Containers pretty much, I think for real scenarios, the overhead is negligible. Mu uses SOPs. That is definitely also an alternative. Yeah, any kind of encryption does the trick. I mean, you could use something like Age to encrypt files, and then you would have, I think, to share the access key. I'm not sure. I've only used Age for myself, so I don't even know if I would be able to add another person's key for encryption as well. SOPs definitely should do that. And then, of course, yeah, next level up would be something like 1Password for me. If you're just joining us, this is my office hour where I answer questions from my DevOps viewership. So if you have any questions that relate to Linux system administration, software engineering, SRE, all that kind of stuff, or if you just want to hear my opinion on things, then post your question post a question to mspc.sh/office hour. All right, we've been going for an hour now, so I would say last round of questions. before I'll wrap up today's stream. My coffee is almost empty as well, so that's good timing. If you still have some final question, post it to mspc.sh/office hour. No further questions? Fine with me. We'll go and raid Frackberg. Frackberg's doing a little bit of cycling, and even though he says there's nothing to see here, I think we can simply go over and say hi and cheer him on a little bit. So let's go over there. I'll be back next week with another round of live coding or maybe co-working streams, and probably I'll also do another office hour on Friday. So if you don't yet follow the stream, please do so, and you'll get a notification when I'm back here online on one of my 3 live channels. And now I'll launch the raid over to Frackberg. Who? Wait, might have vanished? No. No, there he is. Alright, folks. I'll launch the raid. Say hello to Frackberg for me. And I'll see you soon. Have a great weekend.